So, Skyfall made $1 billion, and of course MGM wants more Bond movies, and they plan on having the next one in 2014, and they don't yet have a director. And some news just came out as to who the studio is in talks with, and I'll talk you through all of that. But if there's anyone who needs to make a Bond movie, it's Christopher Nolan. He's been a fan of Bond and taken inspiration from Bond in nearly all of his films, and I think him doing Bond would be the perfect choice. He was in talks earlier on, but his next film, Interstellar, is going to be out in 2014 as well, so MGM may save him for Bond 25 around 2016 or 2017. Another early rumored choice is Sam Mendes, the director of Skyfall himself, and he did a great job with Skyfall, and I have a feeling, since MGM is not at the best financial state, that they're gonna go with Sam Mendes, and I'm sure he'll do a good job, but rarely do Bond directors do multiple films. So you never know, but at this point to me, Sam Mendes feels like the safe choice. And Sam Mendes seemed like a strange choice for Skyfall originally, but considering he didn't have much action movie experience, at the end of the day, he still did a great job. Now, recent news suggests that 4 other directors have been approached. The first is Ang Lee. What? He may be a good director, but he's one of the worst choices for Bond. Bond is far from what he's known to make, and I don't think Bond is what he needs to or is capable of making. Plus, his previous and perhaps only action film, Hulk, was not that great. Then they approached Tom Hooper. What? Les Mis was good and The King's Speech was great, but it doesn't seem like he'd make a great Bond. These two director choices made no sense to me. It's safe to say that Ang Lee and Tom Hooper will not be making the next Bond film. One of the other directors, the third director that was in talks, is David Yates. And David Yates made the final 4 Harry Potter films, and I understand why they chose him, but I'm not 100% sure he's going to do it. Nonetheless, I would not mind seeing a David Yates Bond, and the fourth choice was Shane Black. And while I did enjoy Iron Man 3 and have heard great things about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, I think what he did with Iron Man 3 might work with the buddy cop angle, but at the end of the day, there was so much humor in Iron Man 3, it was very lighthearted, and it won't work with the dark Bond that we've grown to love recently. So, now some of my choices include my top pick, Brad Bird, director of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Need I say more? He'd do an amazing job. And Brad, if you're watching this, make the next Bond. He's a fantastic action director, and his films are very, very well paced. Danny Boyle is another choice of mine. He's a good director. He certainly knows how to pace his films again, and he's kind of slick in what he does, and I think he'd probably make a good Bond movie. Third choice, Ben Affleck. Yeah, Oscar winner Ben Affleck for whatever few action scenes he directed in The Town. I think he'd bring a great touch to Bond, and a relatively new director for Bond is a great choice. He'd make it intense, have a great flow, and make it still be sophisticated, and really delve into Bond, but he'd probably end up casting himself, so that's not going to happen. And another slick director is David Fincher. I think after seeing The Social Network, I'd like to see him do Bond, plus he's worked with Daniel Craig before, and I think he'd go the slick route once again, which is what Bond really needs. How about Martin Scorsese? We've seen The Departed, and I think he can pull off pretty much anything you present him with, and his Bond would be very grounded in an almost surreal world with a big, larger message to it, which could be cool. And another choice of mine is George Clooney, another very Ben Affleck-y choice, but again, he'd probably have to cast himself as the lead. My favorite choice, though, apart from Nolan and maybe Brad Bird, would be a small-time, up-and-coming director. That would be amazing. But a studio, that really needs money right now is not going to take that route. Honestly, there are 2 directors I'd love to see make a Bond movie, but they never ever will, and I'm going to mention them anyway. The first is Steven Spielberg, because he can make any kind of movie. He can make a fun kids movie, a fun action-adventure movie, and even a very sophisticated movie, and I'm sure he'd find the perfect blend for Bond. The Bond movie I'd love to see that I'll probably never see is a Tarantino Bond. He'd have so much gore and almost Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs-esque mystery. It'll be rated R, so it's not going to happen. My prediction is Bond 24 goes to either Sam Mendes or a small-time director, and Bond 25 goes to Christopher Nolan. So, what are your thoughts, guys? Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and like me on Facebook, and 007 reporting for duty. Subscribe now and join the fun. The name's Jack. Mr. Film Jack.